Rider with you.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Lightning Collection Snizzard, the next in the line of the deluxe figures / Monster of the Week figures. And this guy is important because he was voiced by Bryan Cranston. I'm sure you've seen that, like, hey, did you know type of fact go around the internet like dozens of times that Bryan Cranston voiced the monster in mmpr before he became Zordon in the 2017 reboot movie. I knew that he voiced someone. I remembered that, but I never really thought about or remembered who he voiced. And it's funny because, like, when they announced this, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, you can't just make up monsters. They're just doing this rando, and someone's like, Bryan Cranston voiced him. I'm like, oh, I'm the dumbest boy in school. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the accessories first, since that's usually what I start with. You can see on top of him, you actually have his lightning effect part, which is at the top of his little crown thing doing this little lightning effect, which is actually probably one of my more favorite lightning effects because I just usually don't use them. I kind of just throw them in a bag and they go away. But I like when they're unique and they actually pertain to something unique about the toy. And in this case, it does that. So I do appreciate that. You'll get a, watch out! You get a little fake snake here, just kind of a regular fake coiled snake here to scare your friends. That's exactly what it's for. You have one here that can be put in his hand with a handle right here, which is kind of like a whip. They all have like a really nice, actually snake-esque texture. It almost seems like a cross between a snake and a garden hose, but still, it's a nice little unique weapon. Probably the most unique and disturbing one is this like snake bow and arrow, which looks like it's made of like a cobra and a regular snake. Like, it looks kind of disturbing the way he would have had to have made this, but it's one of the more unique weapons. So on to the main event itself. I mean, here's the lighting part, which you can just take off really easily, and I'll just do that to show you, like, hey, look, it's a giant exploding pimple effect. But if you guys know me, if you follow my channel or have watched any of my reviews previously, you know that I personally don't care about Monsters of the Week or villain figures. They're so low on my Lightning Collection priority list, they're not even on the list. But that being said, I feel like I'm always defending these figures because even though I personally am not that into them on like a conceptual level, like I could care less if they were in my collection, I think they're pretty cool figures. This guy has some problems, and some of them have their problems and none of them are free of criticism, but they're pretty freaking cool figures, guys. Like, they're these really like larger scale figures, and I know that's one thing that trips people up is the scale. I guess if it's not exact, people get all mad. I've never cared about that. So long as it's in the neighborhood, or like about to turn into the neighborhood, I'm fine. So I really don't care so much about like the exact scale. But they're these larger scale figures. They have this kind of weight and feel to them, which I really like. They have these really awesome sculpts with all kinds of really cool details. They look, in my opinion, outside of some, insignificant paint details that I don't care about, look accurate to the show in terms of the way the suit looks. And like, again, I just want to highlight I don't care about them just because I think that for me that highlights how cool these figures can be, that I just don't care about the villain of the week figures, but when I get the figures, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. And if you're into the Villain of the Week figures, this is kind of like the best thing we've ever gotten. I mean, back in the day, we got a handful of Monsters of the Week that were kind of like B, C tier quality. And then Monster of the Week figures have been kind of, only here and there in more recent years. But to get these really cool, more detailed, accurate ones, and then people are like tearing them apart like they're awful, it just kind of sucks to see. Again, this guy's not perfect. I have some complaints, which I'm going to raise in a couple minutes. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool looking figure. I think the sculpt looks really nice. The head sculpt looks really awesome and menacing. I think the scales look good. His little snake arms look good. The like snake coiled legs look a little cheap, but like overall, it's a pretty badass looking figure, guys. One thing that is a little weird is when you get him, the tail is separate. That's not the weird part, but it's kind of more of a soft, rubbery material, which is kind of odd. It doesn't, like, cause too much of a discrepancy. In fact, in a way, I'm kind of impressed about how little I notice how it flows here. Sometimes when you have different textured pieces that are add-ons or whatever, you can really tell that, like, you can tell if you really are looking that there's a difference in the material here if you're looking for it, but it flows together rather nicely. But it was an interesting choice. I feel like it was a safety choice, and it's funny to think about because, like, maybe it was a safety choice and you have the soft rubbery little spikes here, but the rest of the spikes are actually rather sharp. That's not necessarily a complaint, but it is kind of surprising how sharp these are on there, and maybe that's why they did it for this. It's kind of funny because you do have this gimmick where you're able to pull this down, and the sharp pieces kind of get in the way of that, but I thought that was kind of interesting of note. But let's note the negatives about this. I will say that sometimes he does have a hard time standing just because of the way his feet are and how heavy he is, especially with a tail. Like, luckily, I guess you can have him, not luckily, because if you have him resting on the tail, he just looks like he's trying to do a Matrix move. But for me, it has a little hard time standing, and that is kind of compounded by the fact that I have a little bit loose joints here on the feet. Both of my feet are a little bit loose, so that kind of doesn't help him being able to stand, which is kind of an annoying bit. And then he does have this ability here to which is unique for him, is you pull down his mouthpiece and basically his whole body is his mouthpiece, which is really cool. It's a unique feature and I really appreciate that. And I think it looks cool when it comes out. But I guess as a negative, a little bit, which isn't a huge deal, but the sharp pieces do make it kind of difficult to get this out without kind of hurting yourself a little bit. Not like really hurting yourself, but it hurts. But then you pull this down, and it's not showing here, but when I first got it, one negative I would say is that for me, the little joints here on his jaw, you can see they separate. This can come off, like not like it's supposed to, but it can come off, is a little bit loose. So whenever I'm pulling this off, the jaw will frequently pop off, and that's definitely one of the negatives. But outside of that, this is pretty cool. You open it up, you have this giant body mouthpiece going on. You have these two little extra snakes in here. It makes them look even more badass. I really dig it. Like, it's not perfect. That's kind of the way I feel about all of these monster figures, is most of them have a handful of little nitpicks I have, like him not being able to stand exactly right. Although it's working, I was gonna say it's working right now, and then he immediately disproved me, but not being able to stand as well, and this piece being a little bit difficult when it comes off sometimes. But overall, it's still an awesome looking figure. Like, again, I don't really care about Monsters of the Week, but I think they're pretty cool figures for what you get. Now, that being said, I feel like I basically do the same review every time I review these, and my recommendation for this guy comes down to my same recommendation anytime I do a recommendation or a review for one of the Monsters of the Week, is that I recommend waiting for a sale. Both because, like, this isn't perfect, and I'd say with some of the imperfections, especially the loose legs, that really bothers me. I would say it's not worth it for the retail price. But that being said, the primary reason I recommend the sale, for the most part with these, is that I have yet to see one of these not go on sale. All the Monsters of the Week we've gotten so far I've seen go on sale. So if you're interested in this, just wait a little bit. I can almost guarantee it'll go on sale. And for a sale or a Black Friday price or a clearance price or whatever, I can definitely recommend checking these out if they're interested. They're not perfect, but they're pretty freaking cool, and they're definitely worth the sale price that they almost always hit. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps, and ring the bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.